The Universal Declaration of Human Rights, Article 6. Everyone has the right to recognition everywhere as a person before the law. The Declaration on the Right and Responsibility of Individuals, Groups, and Organs of Society to promote and protect universally recognized human rights and fundamental freedoms. Article 1. Everyone has the right. Now notice, everyone has the right, individually and in association with others, to promote and to strive for the protection and realization of human rights and fundamental freedoms at the national and international levels. Article 6. Everyone has the right, individually and in association with others, to know, seek, obtain, receive, and hold information about all human rights and fundamental freedoms, including having access to information as to how those rights and freedoms are given effect in domestic, legislative, judicial, or administrative systems. B. As provided for in human rights and other applicable international instruments, freely to publish, impart, or disseminate to others views, information, and knowledge on all human rights and fundamental freedoms. C. To study, discuss, form, and hold opinions on the observance, both in law and in practice, of all human rights and fundamental freedoms, and through these and other appropriate means to draw public attention to those matters. In the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, Article 6, it states that everyone has the right to recognition as a person before the law. Now, some in the position of de facto authority are trying to say that this statement will produce an obligation. By this saying that everyone has a right to recognition, it means you must take recognition. That is so far from the truth. That is just people who don't understand what the expression of law is actually saying. Now, if you look in the Declaration of Rights and Responsibilities, Article 1, it says that everyone has the right. Now listen to that. Everyone has the right, individually or in association, to promote, strive for the protection and realization of human rights and fundamental freedoms. So if everyone has the right was actually an obligatory statement, an obligation, then that would mean that all or a lot of the Hollywood producers and actors who promote violence and murder, even though it's artificial, they are not promoting and striving for the protection and realization of human rights. They would be under accountability and would be subsequent to criminal charges. That would mean everyone in this world who does not promote, strive, or protect, or work for the realization of human rights would be accountable and would be subject to criminal charges under the international covenants that are out there. So it's very clear that when they use the phrase everyone has the right, they're saying that this is something that you can express. This is something that you can do. So just as in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, it states that you can take recognition as a juridical person. And just on that topic, we learn in law that if they try to force you to take juridical recognition or recognition as a person, you can call on habeas corpus to shake off that burden that they're trying to yoke you to. But just like everyone has the right to recognition as a person, everyone has the right to promote human rights. It's a choice you have, not an obligation. Now, if more of us would be following DRR Article 1, it'd be quite a different society that we would be living in right now. In the DRR, Article 6, it states that everyone has the right to know, to seek, obtain, and receive, and to hold information about all human rights and freedoms and fundamental freedoms, including having access to information as to how these or those rights and freedoms are given effect. Listen to the phrase: in domestic legislation or in judicial or administrative systems. So everyone has the right either to know, that means to understand, to seek after this information, to impart this information, to receive this information. How are the expression of the human rights and the fundamental freedoms being expressed through domestic legislation or the other judicial or administrative systems in the country? That is your right. You can either ask for this information from the government itself. Everyone has the right to study, discuss, form, and hold opinions on the observance in law and in the practice of it, of all the human rights and fundamental freedoms, and through these and other appropriate means to draw public attention to those matters. So everyone has the right, through the appropriate means, as being expressed through all these charters, to draw public attention to the fact that the fundamental rights and freedoms of the human being are being stripped here in Canada. The international law protects you when you decide to take action and get out of the position or designation of servant and subject. Instead of playing roles and acting in this commercial system and striving within this system, once you take your designation as a human being and you understand your rights and freedom as a human being, there's one other designation you may want to consider taking on. Now, you are subject to certain rules and regulations if you take this designation, but the powers and the authority that it affords you is wonderful. You may want to consider to become a human rights defender. That's the title, the designation. And that's a charter, just like the Declaration of Human Rights and the International Covenants. That's a charter under the United Nations General Assembly. Resolution A, Res 53144. And shortly, I'm going to be speaking more about this and what rights and privileges can benefit you by standing under this designation, not for yourself, but for your society. People, and a couple of years ago, there was a movement that was going around that said we can become peace officers here in Canada, and we can hold those in authority who are breaking these international covenants and not respecting freedoms and rights of the human being. We'll hold them accountable. And nothing really came of that. This is not a new movement. I'm not trying to produce a movement. All I'm saying is on an individual level, once you understand who and what you are, then you can begin to understand that there's an avenue that is open to you to help others here in Canada to have their human rights and freedoms respected. And there'll be an authority behind you that is greater than the domestic authority here in Canada that will help you and protect you while you act or play in that role. And if you do such a thing, it's to the benefit of the men and women in your country or the men and women in your community, because you will be able to protect them and you will be able to help them express their rights and freedoms as a designation of a human being and not as a juridical personality, a subject of Her Majesty. So look into it, and as I said, I'll be speaking more about this in the future. It's a resolution number A Res 53144.